My name is Nisha Desai from Century Law Firm. Have you ever wondered why someone would confess to a crime they never did? Not a movie scene, not fiction. Real people, real cases, and real confessions. And the scariest part? Sometimes innocent people confess in horrifying detail to the murders they never committed, to crimes they physically could not have done. So today, we're talking about one of the darkest realities of the justice system. Why innocent people confess to the crimes they never did. Imagine this, you're locked inside a small interrogation room for 14 hours. No phone, no sleep, no lawyer, just two officers constantly repeating, "We already know you did it. We didn't blame you. If you confess now, things will go easier." At first, you deny it, and again and again and again. But slowly, your brain starts breaking down. And eventually, you say the one sentence that destroys your life. "Fine, I did it." Even though you didn't. Most people think, if I am innocent, I would never confess, but psychology says otherwise, and history proves otherwise. Let's talk about the psychology of false confessions. Human beings are not built to handle extreme psychological pressure forever, especially when they are scared, isolated, sleep deprived, threatened, manipulated, or made to believe confessions is their only escape. Psychologists usually divide false confessions into three categories. First, voluntary false confessions. This sounds insane, but some people confess voluntarily. Why? Attention, mental illness, guilt over something else, or sometimes to protect another person. There have been cases where people confess just to become famous. Yes, literally. Second, coerced complaint confessions. This is the most common type. This person knows they're innocent, but confesses just to stop the interrogation. Because after hours of pressure, the confession starts to feel like the only way out. Especially when police imply, "Confess and you can go home. Judge will be lenient. Things will become easier." An exhausted brain chooses immediate relief over long-term consequences, and that single moment ruins life. Third, coerced internalized confessions. This is the scariest one. Sometimes people are manipulated so intensely they begin doubting their own memory, especially minors, vulnerable individuals, mentally exhausted suspects, and interrogators may repeatedly say, "You blacked out, you just don't remember doing it." And after enough repetition, the innocent person starts wondering, what if I actually did it? Imagine being so psychologically broken to the point where you distrust your own memory. Now let's talk about how police pressure works. Interrogations are not always calm conversations. Many are psychological battles. Officers are trained to create stress, urgency, and emotional collapse. While some common tactics include lying about evidence, pretending they already have the DNA, or fake witnesses, false promises, long interrogations, intimidation, and isolation. And here's the dangerous part. In many places, police are legally allowed to lie during interrogations. That means they can only say, "We found your fingerprints," even if they did not. Now imagine hearing that after 12 hours without sleep. Your brain starts thinking, maybe fighting is pointless. Now let's talk about what does the Indian law say about it. Here's where it gets legally interesting. Under the Indian Evidence Act 1872, police confessions are generally treated with suspicion. Section 25 and 26 basically say a confession made to the police officer is usually not admissible in court. Why? Because the law recognizes the danger of coercion. The makers of the law knew fear plus police custody is equals to unreliable confessions. And that's why courts prefer independent evidence, recoveries, forensic proof, witness testimony instead of blindly trusting confessions. And honestly, that protection exists for a reason. Because history is filled with wrongful convictions built entirely on false confessions. Now let's talk about the famous wrongful convictions. The Central Park Five, one of the most famous examples ever. In 1989, 5 teenagers in New York City were accused of assaulting a woman in Central Park. After intense interrogations, they confessed. But years later, DNA proved that they were innocent. They had falsely confessed under pressure. Those boys lost years of their lives. And the real criminal was someone else. The next, Brendan Dassey. If you watched the documentary Making of a Murderer, you probably remember this case. Brendan was a teenager with intellectual limitations. During interrogation, investigators repeatedly fed him details and pressured him into agreeing. His confession became one of the most controversial examples of psychological coercion ever recorded. Even today, people debate whether justice was truly served. Now, let's see why this matters. False confessions don't just destroy innocent lives, they also let the real criminal walk free. That's the terrifying part. When police becomes obsessed with getting a confession instead of finding the truth, justice itself collapses. A confession feels powerful, but psychologically, confessions can be manufactured. And history proves that innocence alone does not protect someone from confessing. So the next time you hear, well, he confessed, so he must be guilty, remember this: a confession is not always the truth. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's exhaustion, sometimes it's manipulation, and sometimes it's an innocent person trying to desperately escape a room. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.